The Pac-12 can still not reach a media deal. Will Baylor and Oregon be a regular season game in 5 years? That's very possible. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Baylor. Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated here. I want to thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. Today's show's different, a little funky. I joined Big 12 Mafia here this week to talk a lot about BYU, Baylor, and where this league stands alongside the Pac-12. I had to flesh out all my ideas, answer some big questions, and give you perspective on where Baylor football sits in the Big 12. Where BYU sits, where the conference sits, where the Pac-12 and the ACC, where they sit, where these TV deals are. I just wanted to give you an entire open section of the state of this team, the state of this conference. I've already spoken enough about it. It's great. It's a little similar action coming your way. Take a look.
I cannot wait to meet you in person. When Baylor, I want BYU and Baylor to be blood brothers, brother.
Yeah, they should be. It should be an every year game on Thanksgiving too. I mean, really lean into the religious aspects of these schools. Create a rivalry. You know, now that BYU and Utah aren't playing consistently, right?
Here is a little disturbing. Okay?
I don't know.
This is our rivalry over here.
I don't know if Baylor fans can be as aggressive as Utah fans, but we will pray for you aggressively, I guess.
Okay, that's the funniest thing I've heard in a long time. So I think, actually, look, my wish, and the reason I started this channel and reached out and found you is we really want the Holy Rival show to be a thing. We want the rivalry to be around. And I think if they happen to get into the Big 12, talk about the rivalries that you've got there. TCU, Baylor, Utah, and BYU all came from, right? They all came from places that weren't in strength, and to end up in the same conference, I think that'd just be amazing.
Oh, it'd be great. And if you look at the trajectory or lack thereof of the Pac-12, I mean, it's become embarrassing. You know, I just, the mishandling of that league means that schools like Utah, you know, Nathan, plug your ears, a powerhouse like Utah should be in a conference that suits it, that fits it, that can market it. That's the big thing here is marketing. I mean, if your product's not as good, the Big 12 is not as good as the SEC or the Big 10. But if you can market it, then people are going to watch. That's why I think with the ACC, here's what's so strange to me. The way I put it on my show this week is if a food critic, if a really renowned food critic came out and tweeted, "I love Long John Silver's," just that affiliation alone kills all your credibility. Right. So the ACC went out and signed a deal with the CW. The ACC went out and said, "I like Long John Silver's," and America's going to laugh, right? Why would you shoot yourself in the foot? Let the Pac-12 do that. Let them be the food critic that gets it all wrong. And the ACC is the one that's really hasn't come to play, I guess. So to me, I would love to see Utah, BYU. I'd love to play Utah, man. That part of the country is unbelievable, just from a travel standpoint. I'd love to be out there. But I think it's likely that you get Utah and then maybe you get NC State along with them the way this thing's going.
If you want to come up to the Baylor game at Utah this year, get a ticket and you can stay in my basement.
That's where I am right now, Nathan.
Okay, well, you can stay longer.
Stay here, yeah.
Go ahead, Baylor, week 2. It's a one game for the Utes
in Waco, yeah. So we'll get you guys. We'll get you guys in Utah, I guess, next year, yeah.
That's right.
I thought it was in Salt Lake. I apologize. It's in Waco.
Yeah, get this, guy. So Florida at home, then Baylor.
Oh, Florida is the one I was flipping back and forth.
That's so brutal. The youth schedule is tough.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you got the best team. If you guys, we've heard it for a decade now. Utah's coming. Utah's coming. You've talked about it. You're proud about it. Now's the time to show me state. If you guys, with the team you have, Cam Rising coming back, if you guys don't make it to the playoff now, I don't know when it's going to happen.
I agree. I do. I think there's truth in that. You've really got to make moves this year. You've got to win this year with all this media rights stuff going on too. I think that is so important.
So give us an outlook of Baylor, Drake. Well, where do you think you guys end up this year?
Yeah, what I love about it is the lack of hype coming into the season, and what hype there is, I think, is not warranted. It's Baylor's I was surprised being a top 5 team in the Big 12 going into next year. The media I don't want to say they overvalue Dave Aranda, but they're giving him a lot of confidence after a 6-7 season. What I see for this next year for the Bears is a really high ceiling. I mean, they got 8 home games. They could win 10 games in the regular season. I don't want to say easily, but with what Dave Aranda has done more with less than what he's got coming back next season, Baylor could also go 5-7 by nature of how bad last year was. We spent the whole offseason talking about how good this team is, and then they laid a fat egg. It was 7-6, but a brutal, terrible 7-6, especially down the stretch, losing your last 4. Yeah. So going into this year, you got Blake Shapen, and a lot of people don't love it, right? But I remind you, I get it, everybody, grain of salt here. Max Duggan sucked at football at one point. There was a time where he's been benched multiple times in his college career. I don't think Blake Shapen's going to be Max Duggan, but I do think that we undervalue experience and consistency in college football. Sure, the guy wasn't great last year, right? But at least he's had an entire season of starting football games under his belt. And that, to me, goes a long way, especially when compared to the backup Sawyer Robertson, the most popular guy in town right now, who has thrown for 28 yards in his collegiate career.
Right.
So how does Blake Shapen play? I think Baylor goes pretty much as far as the offense goes. I don't have a lot of worries about the defense and Matt Powledge. But this offense under Jeff Grimes, who was so good in his first couple of years with Baylor, has, it remains to be seen what they can put out there.
You can see why BYU didn't give him that extension. I'll just say that. He's a great line coach, and he definitely knows how to schematic things, but I think he's a horrible play caller. That's coming from a BYU fan. I was sad to see him leave, but then I was also okay to see him leave.
Wait, Bomber, it wasn't
tough to say.
Just had that 11-win season 2 seasons ago. Wasn't Grimes?
But that wasn't because of him. That wasn't. He had Alex. He had Wilson. He had Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Anybody could have done that in college with that. No, it wasn't him.
He's got a wicked good mustache, though.
Aaron Roderick is now running the offense, and this next year in the Big 12, there are going to be some people that are surprised by how many numbers they filled out. I'm not saying they're going to win the thing. I'm just saying they could win 8-9 games, and it wouldn't be a shock.
Yeah, I think for Grimes, it's been a success story so far, especially in year one. Again, talking about doing more with less. The offense wasn't great, and he flipped the offensive line with Eric Mateos. I mean, Chip and Joanna fixer-upper. I mean, what season to season was wild.
Right.
But so far, to me, the question mark's been quarterback development. You saw Zach Wilson, how good he was at BYU, so we all thought, all right, Jeff Grimes can do that with Blake Shapen, and we haven't seen it yet from him or the quarterback coach, Sean Bell. And I do think for a lot of Baylor fans, the jury is still out on Jeff Grimes. I'm in his camp. I think that he can still be the answer at OC for Baylor, but this year is going to prove. Dave Aranda has shown you can get fired pretty quick here at Baylor if you're not working out, as he's done with Larry Fedora in year one, a great head coach who he canned, and then did with his DC Ron Roberts this last year. Dave's not afraid to pull the plug.
Just to follow up one last thing on Jeff Grimes, I want to be very clear because we have a lot of BYU fans, and I don't want them to think I'm not loyal. But just like Baylor or Utah people, once you're BYU, you're always BYU. It's not a judgment. I'm a nobody, but I can just tell you that a lot of those quarterback development hours were done by Aaron Roderick, the QB coach that's now the offensive coordinator. Jeff is great with the line. He's down in the trenches. He knows how to put a big wall up. It's a matter of can he make those big calls. I was disappointed with some play calls last year. They should have beat TCU, for instance. They had TCU beat and let them off the hook. And I think that was on Jeff.
We're looking at like Baylor's pinned at their own 2-3 yard line running a sweep.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
There were some head scratching moments. But again, when you take it, there's a little bit of recency bias for some Baylor fans there because everybody was singing his praises when he took Gary Bohannon and turned him into a Sugar Bowl champion, a Big 12 champion. So it's been 2 completely different seasons under Grimes. Do you get a repeat of last year, or do you get another Sugar Bowl type offense?
Right.
Whoa, going to jump in here and tell you about eBay Motors. Dude, I can tell you this much. First and foremost, great conversations going on right now. I can tell you this much. For a championship team, It's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. I got an old Impala sitting in the back right now for here in Alaska with expired plates and some other weird bad jazz, and it's terrible. But got it serviced this week with eBay Motors because it was way cheaper. It's what our organization, our baseball team uses, eBay Motors. Right now, if you need parts or accessories, go to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part's going to fit. And if it doesn't, well, I'll be monkey's uncle. It's going to fit the first time around. You add your car to My Garage, and they tell you what's going to fit. If it doesn't, you get your money back. It's just like in sports. Your confidence is the name of the game. When you shop on eBay Motors, you can be confident. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts. Get the right fit. The right prices. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. ebaymotors.com. eBay. Guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers and eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
All right, Drake, let's go. Let's talk about some Pac-12 media deal stuff. Your favorite topic, yeah. Okay,
he's been waiting. You can tell.
Oh, dude.
Okay, imagine that you're a Pac-12 media consultant.
Yeah,
right? That's where you're sitting. What do you do to get a deal done, and how do you do it?
What do I do as a Pac-12 media consultant?
Yes.
I go in the back and I'm done. That's it. It's wraps for me. I quit my job and fly to some remote island. Oh. I would hate to be myself right now. I should rebrand my show to Locked On Baylor, your Pac-12 bad talk every day. Like I mean, it's because it's continual, right? Every time you think, all right, maybe the Pac-12, maybe today's the day. It's never the day. It's never the day. And every news that breaks is just wholly embarrassing for the league. And that, to me, is why guys like Deion Sanders, why brands like Oregon, why schools like Utah who are competing for New Year's Six Bowls are not going to put up with it anymore. They're too good to be withering away in a conference that is going nowhere. It's less than stagnant. This is a downhill turn. You remember that graphic they released like 2 months ago that basically said nothing? They posted on the official Pac-12 page, we are working on a TV deal.
Right.
And
in
it was
January.
a lie.
Yeah,
right.
January they did that.
It's been over a year now of them saying tomorrow's the day, and tomorrow hasn't come yet. And when you see the biggest nightmare for the Pac-12 is the strength of the Big 12 right now. Why wouldn't you, if you are Utah, Arizona, Colorado, want to be in the Big 12, especially for a school like Colorado that's already been there and hasn't seen immaculate success in the Pac-12? Where I'm happy is for Utah fans, Arizona fans, Colorado fans that know they're not going to get left behind. Where I feel a little torn, if you're an Oregon State fan listening, I'm sorry. You'll be lucky to be in the Mountain West in 3 years because that's where college football is going. If you're not already a secure brand or one that's protected, then you're not going to be Power 5 for long.
That's right. So since you're the media consultant here and you just gave a lot of bad advice for us here, can you change the tune here, Drake, and tell me how it could get done? How do you think you could just say that let's say that it's going to get done? Let's make that assumption, right? How could it get done?
Compromise be the number one thing. You're not going to land a marquee deal with ESPN or Fox Sports. It's not going to happen at this point in the juncture. And I don't think those two brands are off the table. The Pac-12 could negotiate themselves back into a deal with a major network for a lot less money. This is going to be, hey, we are now begging you, ESPN, to keep us relevant, to keep our brand relevant. And then there's the idea of streaming. I get it. I don't like it. I don't watch a lot of Thursday Night Football. I think most of the broadcasts that are put out just aren't great. I don't feel always all that entertained, and I don't have a knack to go and search up these on Apple TV. But at least it's something. And if you can get some of your games on Apple TV or some kind of streaming service in that form, just see if it works. At this point, if you're the Pac-12, like I said, compromise, you have to throw something against the wall and hope that it sticks. Otherwise, your big brands are not going to stick around to see the ship sink. There are only a handful of lifeboats left on this boat that is it's halfway in the water. I mean, this thing's going down. And these schools, these Colorados, are not going to stick around to be on the CW. They're not going to stick around, even maybe to be on a streaming service, unless somebody puts up big dollars. Right now, you're the Pac-12. You lay down and say, look, we're sorry. We'll take what we can get.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's right about Apple. Really, Apple's the solution. I think it's the solution. Unless you want a Frankenstein deal.
Right. Apple's the solution for everybody who wants to be bailed out in today's world. Honestly, they write a check and pick you up. Blake Phillips, thanks for the tip, $2 super chat for giggles. I'm just gonna say that.
Giggle.
So what do you think, Drake, about the outcome of the Big 12 Media Days? Were you impressed? You've seen these before.
Yeah.
I haven't. The organization, the spirit, the entire thing from start to finish. What was your takeaway from that?
Felt different, felt really well put together. Your mark is at the forefront of the buzzword that I used earlier, and that's marketing.
Right.
There is something to this. Great example. I mean, I'll put it in terms of where I am here in the Alaska Baseball League. When you hear the words Alaska and baseball, you perk up a little bit, right? The league doesn't have immaculate competition up here, but people watch it because it's marketed well, and there's that oddity to it. There's some intrigue here, and that's what the Big 12 is to me. I am so excited to see Texas Tech play a team like Houston because there's a lot of bad blood there. You don't get to see that matchup very often, and those two fan bases hate each other for no reason. But they hate each other, and that's what makes it fun. So the marketing of the Big 12, you saw it on display at Big 12 Media Days. Everything's so well put together. All the head coaches felt like they each had something unique to say, which is very new, right? Even Neil Brown got up there and put on a show, at least. The guy's just begging for his team to get some sort of recognition when they don't deserve any. And then obviously, Dave Aranda, as good as he is, Kalani Sitake is one of my favorite characters. I will use that characters in college football because I saw him pregame before the Baylor game he made it a point to go to the student section 3 hours before the game when they first let them in and go stand there and talk to students and rile them up and turn it into a show. You need that. For people to watch it, you need that. So Big 12 Media Days to me, and the BYU TV guys, you see they got a whole locker room setup.
Right.
I mean, the accommodations that were made for media to show up at this place and be put, it wasn't media can come and check it out. It was, we're going to cater this thing to the media so you can put our conference firmly on the map. That's what I loved. I couldn't have asked anything more out of this Big 12 Media Days. Like I said, it felt different, and it also felt like it was uncomfortable for Texas and OU, which is exactly what I wanted.
I bet that made you feel good. I got a graphic to ask you, and then I'll let you ask you another question. So, and I'm going to make this bigger so we can all see it. In fact, why is it so big? Anyway, this is a list that I saw posted right before the show started. This is most seasons' final AP poll when you start unranked, all the way back to 72. The reason 72 matters for BYU people is that's when Lavelle Edwards started coaching. BYU is at the top of that list at 12 seasons. So they start unranked and they end up with 12. And I was telling you earlier that Utah would be on this list if they hadn't have made the jump to the Pac-12. They'd be somewhere around the Auburn, West Virginia numbers. Are there any of these, and you see Baylor's here, are there any of these that surprise you that you're like, oh, I didn't know that?
Yeah, I'm number one, Miami being there. I guess you have your Schnellenberger they feel pretty relevant over the course of the last 40, 50 years, though.
Right.
But then you have your slew of Big 12 schools, your West Virginia and Oklahoma State and Baylor. Those aren't shocking. And I like to see the amount of Big 12 teams that are there. What it shows is the parity that you're going to get in this league. For fans that aren't used to the Big 12, the BYU guys that are new to it, you're going to see not a lot that makes sense, to put it bluntly. Any given week, somebody can, like West Virginia last year, is one play away from beating TCU, who went to the national championship.
Right.
That's the nature of this league, and that's why that number is so high for Big 12 teams, and why I think BYU is a great fit. They overachieve. They win games when they're not supposed to, and they thrive when the media puts them second.
You had another one.
Yeah, well, I think on that list right there, that's the ultimate disrespect list.
Yeah,
right there. Yeah, coming in unranked and ending the season ranked, that means that you're not getting credit, right? And then season to season, people are discounting you or disrespecting you. So really, that's a testament for those schools. And Utah was there. We're kind of still there to a degree, but yeah, that's the disrespect list and stuff. And earn more respect, put respect on those names right there. That's how I see that.
And you mentioned earlier, Drake, and I really want to key on this, that you like Kalani Sitake, right?
Yeah.
He's one of the most popular people in all of Big 12 right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be around him. And if you've ever been in a room with him, I was at a fireside where he was speaking. We're talking, there were 500 people there, right? I didn't get to talk to him or anything. But the energy in the room, which is what you're describing,
Yeah.
It's palpable. The electricity, it makes the hair on the back of your neck and your arms sort of jump up. And he is Lavelle Edwards. He doesn't have any bigger designs. Not to say that if Georgia called him, he wouldn't make a move, but he is where he wants to be. And I think that's really unique. There's not a lot of jobs in the country that have that. Do you feel that you like BYU? And I really want to get sort of your feeling about that.
Yeah, again, if I could rebrand Locked On Baylor, some days it's Locked On Baylor. You're BYU Cougars every day. I feel like I get stuck because I have such an affinity for the program because of the brand they represent and how they do it. Here you go. Here's the part you clip. I think BYU does a lot of things better than Baylor, so that Baylor should follow along. When it comes to game day atmosphere, when it comes to social media interaction, when it comes to marketing the school, BYU shows that you can have a commitment to religion, a commitment to faith, but also a commitment to excellence, a commitment to marketing and to branding. They do it so well. I was blown away being in the stadium last year, seeing those guys play. And I wish Baylor would take note. Somebody tweeted that out today. It was like, BYU plays the songs, the football games. They make it an atmosphere at the football games, right? They don't tiptoe around stuff. They're committed to faith, but at the same time, they can have fun. And Baylor's gotten away from that in the last few years, even post-COVID. So I hope Baylor takes that Kalani Sitake mentality, because I do think it has to stem from your head coach of your premier team, which is football at BYU. And as much as he has done off the field, I think he's bought himself time. The guy could go 500 in the Big 12 the next 2 years. I think he's got a healthy window at BYU.
Sure.
Guys like Sam Pittman at Arkansas, same deal. You don't have to win 10 games.
Yeah.
If you're a light for the program and the fans love you and the fans say, look, we could go 8-4, 9-3, and dude, you're awesome. Dave Aranda at Baylor, same deal. Those are the head coaches I have an affinity for in college football, whereas LSU fired Ed Orgeron after a season and a half post-national championship.
Yeah,
there's nothing. I want no part of that. I want the Sitakes, the Pittmans, the Arandas.
Very good. We have a Pac-12 question from Sergeant Pickles. Thanks, Pickles. Appreciate you being here. He's the UW fan. This will absolutely be right up your alley. He says, Pac already behind the 8 ball, might as well try to be ahead of the curve on streaming. Anything is still an upgrade over the Pac-12 network. Nobody's going to disagree with that, right?
Oh, nobody's going to disagree with that. The Pac-12 network's horrible. So many people in Salt Lake City still couldn't get the Pac-12 network because it wasn't on Dish Network. And so it's just been a bane for all Pac-12 fans. Anything's better than that. Apple's better than that. Any streamer's better than that. But you can't have your main games, your tier 1 games on a streamer, y'all. You need it on ESPN or Fox. So this Apple deal, if they work out an Apple deal, you really need to license those games out to ESPN and Fox. It's a must to make it work with Apple.
I love that point, and also love the UW fan in there. Bow down to Washington. Mighty are the men who wear the purple and the gold. I know the whole theme song. Why not, right? The idea with streaming is great. The problem is when Cal plays Oregon State, even if you put that right in front of me on the main ESPN channel, I don't know if I'm watching it. Right, the struggle is going to be getting people to go to Apple and watch these games, such as why Pac-12 After Dark didn't really work. If you got a dud matchup one week, then nobody stayed up after dark to watch that. Especially when this big game between Alabama and LSU cuts off, and now you go to Cal, Arizona. I mean, that's just dreadful for college football fans. But while I'm ragging on the Pac-12 there, the same is true in the Big 12. There are matchups where, and as unique as I find it, there are weeks where, say, your West Virginia plays a Kansas State, or an Iowa State. There's a lot of folks that don't care. Games outside the Big Ten and the SEC don't have that carry that those two power conferences do. So that's the one thing with streaming that I'm leery of is, if we put it there, how do we get people to go there and watch it?
Right. And I think that you have to license those games and put them on linear. At least, like, you've heard like Robbins from Arizona saying that they want 60% of the games on linear.
Yeah, you give me this. To me, the Utah conversation, it feels like they belong. Like, just the way I see it, feels like they belong in the Big 12, belong with BYU. I know there are people that would shy away from that, the same as your A&M and UT fans shy away from each other. Do you feel like the fit for Utah would be in the Big 12 more so than the Big 10, just from an entertainment and fan perspective?
I think that they fit in both.
Right.
Truly both.
I would agree with that. I think they've made good strides to qualify to go to the Big 10. They're not ready yet. I still think they're a decade or more away, but who knows what they
Pac-12 for 10 years, 12 years has equipped them to step up to the Big 10 if it ever comes. But Utah could easily fit into the Big 12 immediately, guys. It wouldn't be any problem at all. Like, culturally, Utah's a lot different than a lot of the West Coast schools.
I think it'd be fantastic for competitive balance. Again, you bring in rivalries. Arizona State, they hate each other, right? But the rivalry, which is what Bob Thompson, I don't know if you were watching back in August, Drake, or not, but I've mentioned several times Bob Thompson's quote. He said, the things that are most important aren't eyeballs, they're not TV sets, it's rivalries, right? And then what's the second one? I'm losing it. You remind me. What's the second one? Rivalries is the one I was keen on.
Brands, rivalries.
Brands. Thank you. It was brands and rivalries were the top two. So USC is a brand, but UCLA was a come along, right? They didn't. They were. It would have been better, honestly, to take Washington. Washington was a much better fit, and they took UCLA because they were kind of, well, I guess we want to own LA. We don't want that to be bifurcated or taken from us. But at the end of the day, Utah in the Big 12, I don't think they step in and they're the champion the first year. But I think they would be just as they could compete with everybody at the top, and they're certainly in the top, 5 or 6. I would say that.
Would Utah be favored to win the Big 12 this season?
I think quite possibly. This team
this year, I think
I agree with you. Yeah.
I think
Texas Tech is going to be good. Kansas State's going to be good.
Should they be favored? Yes, they would have been third behind Oklahoma and UT because of the way that Big 12 media votes. A surprise! Right. Texas is first. Get used to it. This is just the way it's always been.
Right.
Yeah. Last question, really, from me, Drake. Here is how do you really see this realignment stuff shaking out over the next couple months? What's going to happen as you do?
If we fast forward to 2025, you've heard Brett Yormark say that we want to add 2 more. And we're in a position, we've had this conversation the last couple of weeks on my show, looking at Houston and the value they add to the Big 12. And of these 4, BYU to me is the outlier. It's the lock to come to the Big 12. Brett Yormark, had he sat on it a little bit, had the opportunity to bring in Colorado sooner, I think you would have done that. The Arizona schools, Utah, looking at the ACC, and if you look at the 7 teams that got left behind, there's some good brands in there for the Big 12 to bring in. And if Yormark says he wants 2 more, he doesn't mean Memphis. He doesn't mean SMU. Right. He means 2 powerhouses out of the Pac-12, whether it be Utah or Arizona, Colorado, and maybe your outlier NC State, maybe your UNC, by chance they don't go to the Big 10. I think they would fit there. But there always feels like that one team where you think, what a weird brand to get left behind for whatever reason. And the Big 12 is going to be there. The ACC signing the CW deal, it didn't do them any favors. Dabo Swinney, people don't think about it. They take humanity out of this thing. Humans make these decisions, and they affect humans, right? Dabo Swinney's having a conversation with his wife where she goes, the CW, what do you think about that? And I can tell you, it's not a good conversation. Right. Nobody in that conference is happy about, right? Nobody in that Power 7 of their league is happy about that. So those same conversations are happening in head coaches and ADs households across the Pac-12. 2025 comes around, everything will be different, and based solely on where the 5 conferences are today, July 15th, the Big 12 will be the 3rd most powerful conference in college football in 2025. And with the complete turmoil in the ACC and the Pac-12, I would struggle to be convinced otherwise. All right, that was, dude, dope conversation with those guys. The ability to talk about this conference, the future of the conference, made me feel confident in where Baylor is and where the Big 12 is. Come back on Monday. We'll talk Baylor football. We're getting close. We are a month away from the college football season here on Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Baylor.